Mini Takes Podcast.
Look, if I open up your painting tutorial and the first step is getting out an airbrush, buddy, I'm not watching.
Bunch of nerds on the internet. Are you even having fun with this anymore?
Shane, if this happens, there's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth, people burning their armies.
If you can't see it, don't paint it. It's Mini Takes Podcast time. That's Austin. I'm Shane. And as usual, Mini Takes wants your takes. And so we're going to start off this show like we do every show, reacting to some of the takes that you all have left over on our Discord. Where can they join the Discord, Austin?
You can join down below in the description, sometimes in the comments if I get around to it. But just click that link and you can join for free. That's again for free, no cost of entry. You can join, you can talk, you can play games with us. We post hobby photos. We do semi-weekly polls. We do just chatting, talking about the state of the game, state of the world, state of our lives. But it is a lot of fun in there. It's a blast. Come on and join the rest of us tabletop fans.
That's right, and there are more ways than ever to interact with Mini Takes. You can check out the Facebook page, which I feel like will be quite a good forum for people to post their takes on anything that we talk about and berate us. And yet nobody has. So, what's wrong with you people? Go and follow the Facebook page. The TikTok is doing pretty good. So there's a Mini Takes TikTok, which is largely a bunch of reels of my works in progress and questions about the hobby, which get a good amount of interaction. So, as always, be sure to like and subscribe over on YouTube or anywhere else you get your podcasts. And now, here are some of your takes. These come from last week's episode where we said, does 11th edition make sense out of terrain? Finally, we think it does. This comes from Saurus Blood. For tournaments and events, you're likely still going to see a lot of those MDF terrain pieces just because of the fact they need a lot of terrain that is easy to store and transport. But local stores, RTTs, we might see more interesting boards, and you're going to have less awkward moments of someone saying, that's not the right terrain. As for dispositions, love the idea, not exactly confident in the execution. There's a risk that you go to a tournament and play the same mission 3 to 5 times if one's disposition is just better than the others. That could be. I hope in the more, look, we're talking about the take and hold and the purge the foe dispositions, right? The kill stuff and the stand there ones are just easier to do because they're easier to do. Yep. So I hope that GW has foreseen that, and that the more sort of what should we call them? The stranger ones are going to be maybe worth more points when you do them, or in some way made easier to do, right? It would not be the end of the world if at first, especially, you kind of just got paid in points for trying, right? Because then that would cause people to try that, and then your Purge the Foe guy gets paired with a weird one, and so now their mission changes, and you won't just have, whatever Purge the Foe versus Purge the Foe is 5 times in a row, because that would stink.
Yeah. I think.
Go ahead.
I think that I don't see what the problem is of playing the same mission if you go to a tournament and you have to play all the missions. I think that's just the way that the cards were dealt for your tournament.
Well, also, you're kind of doing that now in that you can end up playing Ultramarines with Marnius Calgar 3 times in an RTT. You know what I mean? So, the mission changed from J
Blood
to K.
Angels 3 times, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so I don't know. But I'm interested, and thank you, Saurus Blood, for the takes. We've got more. This comes from Peggle09. By the way, I've never seen these names. If you're new people, be sure to subscribe. Hope you're enjoying the show. Peggle09 says, I think the mission matrix they are doing will have people build a little more balance in their army. The new terrain layout is interesting and will favor melee until some of the ranged armies figure some things out. I was thinking about this favor the melee thing, and I was thinking about how the firearm, at risk of going too far back in time, for this thought. Okay, the firearm kind of fundamentally changed the game of combat in real life, right?
Mm.
The fact that you could, with some pretty certain lethality, say, "Hey, you way over there," bang. The sword,
Uh,
the sword was largely, I mean, in the grand scheme of history, relegated to the waste bin in a moment. Obviously,
I wouldn't say that quite so much.
well, I know we've got something like 200 years of firearm development where the sword was still working because the gun wasn't working very good.
Yeah.
But if you compress all this down to the, what I'm saying is, we're never going back to swords. But in 40K, they do want to have swords, right? But I pointed this out to you about Blood Bowl, which is the forward pass in Blood Bowl is so deadly and so
Hmm.
difficult to play against because the rest of the game involves guys having to touch guys
Hmm.
like real American football, where the way that you interact with the game is there's a person with the ball and you've got to go and touch the guy with the ball or physically stop him. Oh, but we've got the forward pass where we can air it out 60 yards over your head. And that becomes the, I mean, it's the most difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Talking about our couple hundred years of firearm development, right? Uh,
Hmm.
but the benefit of being able to do it is so great that you would not do it, right?
Hmm.
Nobody's running the wing T and winning any playoff games these days. Now, how the heck does any of that have to do with 40K? And it is that shooting is just fundamentally better than melee because you don't have to have your enemy up in your grill.
There's no trade
There,
involved
there,
with it. Is
yeah,
the key.
yeah. There's I shoot you and you're dead way over there, and it's
End of
done.
action. That's it.
End of action.
There's no
And
chance of you to then swing back. Yeah.
yeah, so you're sort of getting where I'm coming from on this. And so I like that 40K appears to be, and we're going to talk about it today. Our big thing, we're giving our takes on the new combat charge phase engagement range rules that were revealed last week. Um, our recording schedule is such that we are not the quickest on the draw out here to continue to beat this metaphor to death, but it has given us time to sharpen our takes on this stuff. And Austin's been busy; he hasn't heard any of it, so he's gonna be learning and giving takes. But being that 40K wants to have the chainsword and melee combat be a thing, not some side thing or whatever, because in a game that we like to play now, bolt action, the assault, which is the melee combat, is a little bit of a side thing. It's it's kind of a oversimplified maybe kind of interaction, and it just sort of happens and you get your result. Um, Not the kind of game that 40K wishes to be, but to have it work that way, you do have to over leverage the melee, or else no one will do it. How many editions in the past devolved into a gun line on one side of the table and a gun line on the other, and people putting their tanks and their cannons and everything not on the edge of their deployment zone, but on the back of the table edge, just to try
Hmm.
to give as many opportunities, make it as difficult as possible for you to get stuck in with them. And so,
Yeah.
uh, I like it. I like that the melee may be a little overtuned because I think it's fun. The shooting's cool, but I feel like that's kind of the realm of the tanks and the others, the armor really. And
Well,
in my opinion, 40K is best when it's groups of dudes stuck in the middle.
what it is we once again return back to the baseline of the game being the Space Marine. And the Space Marine playstyle is you move, you shoot as you close in, and then you go in for the final combat to finish them off. That's essentially the playstyle of the Space Marine broadly when you're playing 40K. I think that's kind of the essence of how 40K is played. It's very much a closing engagement, leading to assault kind of play style.
Yeah, and the Space Marine has to feel good. If the Space Marine doesn't feel good, I feel like the whole game really starts to creak along. Because
Mm-hmm.
listen, Tau players, love you, but if it was Space Tau, the space communist shooting squads, nobody would play that game. If it was just a bunch of those dudes. We've got another one. This one comes from over on Spotify. This is Dave and Company, a frequent contributor. He says, Shane's rants on mini takes, sign me up. For the terrain, I may get plexiglass or something in those layout shapes. I've got tons of terrain, gothic ruins, trees, junk, etc. With those footprints and those sizes, I'll need a reminder of just what that footprint is. It sounds better than paintball courses, but it's still kind of a mirror course, just with footprints and not MDFL shapes. He also says, Austin, I hope your dog is okay, and my wife calls me Mini Take. That's a good thing, right? Haha. He must be giving his mini takes to his partner, which, as much fun as it is, I don't recommend it. My wife gets tired of hearing about this stuff in a much shorter time than the length of an episode. Let me just tell you that, boy.
The dog is doing okay. She is regular now.
Wonderful. Well, let's get on to what we're talking about today. Once again, you can leave your takes anywhere that you can find us, and we will throw them out here. Start of every show. Tune in. Check it out. All right, new fight phase in 11th edition has been revealed, and it's not just really the fight phase. There's parts of the fight phase that they didn't even talk about, because in the initial 11th edition reveal, there was talk about how the tax allocation might change or something, but we kind of got, we got a bit of it, but we got a good bit. And I've got some high points that I took from it, and I've seen some analysis. I've got a couple of takes. I'm coming for you, Tactical Trevi, at Tactical Tortoise. He did an hour live stream about these reveals, and I do like Tactical Tortoise. I do like Trevi and his analysis because he gets really into the minutia of the rules, the edge cases they're wording, the implications of them. However, I'm not so keen on his attitude toward the stuff.
Why's that?
Well, we'll get into that a little bit later. I guess we can get into it now.
I just want to know if it is it negative, is it positive, what is it?
Okay. Nobody ever played a basketball game to do a science experiment. Let me start right there, and I'll expound on that idea. Our longtime listeners from 40K Fanatics will have probably heard my takes on, is 40K, it's a question, it's a thought experiment for you personally, really. Is 40K chess or like chess, or is it like a sport? Okay? Sports lately, with fantasy, with gambling, with all these things, have been attempting to very accurately quantify every single little thing that they do, right? And there's a podcaster that I listen to, a longtime sports writer, columnist guy, Dan Lebitard's show, and he has come to a very strange place in his sports fandom where he gets upset if if a team is coming into the playoffs with some injuries, or if a football game is played in adverse weather conditions, and he believes that to be, and these are his words, he believes that to be like a cheapening of the product, a bastardization of the experiment, right? Like, as if both teams aren't both playing in the rain, or as if this whole thing is to objectively establish who is best.
So you're telling me that's not the point of it?
I don't think that's the point of a sport. Think
New to
about
me.
think about the first ancient man coming back to the camp. Frank next to him said, "Bet I can beat you to the tent." And off they ran. No watch, no particular distance. Just, can I beat you? They got back to the camp, and Steve, who's at camp, is like, I can beat both of you to the tree. And now we're racing. At no point is any of this about, so which one of us actually achieved the highest top speed? Oh, well, Stan last week, he had a tailwind, and so he actually ran, 0.6 miles an hour faster than any of us did today. So on the day, he could have beat any of us. No, that's not the point. The point is, who won right now? Who's here right now? All right. In 40K, it appears that people want, and Trevi said this in his analysis of these things, he bemoaned that the charges we'll get into as we break down some of these new rules are going to be a little more swingy, and that the double pile-in that you can do with the now overrun combat will allow you to slingshot even greater and make these bigger swings based on what you roll in your charge roll. Potentially, again, this is theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
Might happen on your table, might not happen on another table. And the competitive crowd, the meta crowd, seem to really care about that. And I think they're missing the point of this entire thing. We are not, in my opinion, doing a science experiment. We're just
Mm-hmm.
seeing who wins when we put these two things together. Your decisions are still going to matter. What I hate, and this is the whole tournament scene, right, is that these guys want to get upset when the theoretical potential of scoring is less based on something than at another table across the conference room.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, they had an easier mission, and da 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 da. Oh, that matchup was such a mismatch that Steve over there is guaranteed to score 100. Okay, well, did he? Did he? Or does Steve suck?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Like, this whole entire thing about let's break this into tournaments and let's play this competitively, it's just missing the point of the entire thing. And I
So
hate the attitudes that I see about it.
is it stat nerds ruin everything? Is that what we're getting at?
I think that may be the very abridged version of what I've just said, is that the nerds are ruining everything. Because at the point you say, we need to dome all the NFL stadiums because we don't want to in any way change the potential math of a team on a day, I'm like, we have lost the plot, man. We've
We need
just
a we,
we've
we
just
need a
lost it.
vacuum for scientific testing. We need to make sure our variables are all correct for testing the scientific method. That's exactly what's going on.
Like when nerds say that Major League Baseball needs to have a standardized outfield. They do this because they're like, well, the Yankees have that short porch in left field, right? Or maybe it's right field, whatever. So Aaron Judge hits more home runs than he would hit at a different stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but when you play the Yankees, you get to play with the same short porch. You see what I'm saying? So Trevi was running through these changes and how they're different from now and what that means relative to now. And I just want to scream at him like, hey, man, you realize that you and your opponent are both going to be subject to the pros and the cons of these new rules? Like, nobody's going to play and still play 10th edition engagement rules versus your 11th edition rules. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So, why do you seem upset? Why do I seem upset? I seem upset because, just like in the intro, are you people even having fun with this stuff? Now, if you have takes on that matter,
I think you need to cool down. So let's take 5 for you.
oh, I got to take 5. All right, the take 5 is where we get 5 minutes. Don't have to take the whole 5 minutes, but I'll probably take a good chunk. We run the timer. Um, I've got a call time on Austin later on. Don't let me forget. And for my 5, I want to talk about decals, water slide decals. Austin, do you mess with decals at all?
I've messed with them in the past.
I'm starting to get good at them. So I was working on my bolt action tanks, as I have said previously. I got me a few vehicles. We ordered a together. We ordered a sprue order, so I got some new stuff, and I got some decal sheets of U.S. stars and numbers and things like that to go on my tanks and my jeeps. And they're very, very tiny numbers. They're very small, but they're kind of just in random strings, which is nice because if they were individual, they would be really crooked because, again, very, very small. And water slide decals, boy. I hold them in tweezers, the tiny little bit that I cut out, right? I hold them in tweezers. I dip them in my clean paint cup. You know, it's a vessel of water and it's handy. I take my
Hmm.
X-Acto knife and a big wet brush. Those are the things that I do. And the first couple, I was having a little trouble. They didn't want to come off. I tried getting them off with the X-Acto, but then I had one just roll up on it, and I said, okay, that's not going to work. So then I went to what I've seen people do, the pros do, where they actually do the water slide.
Okay.
And it felt more advanced, I tell you. One, you need to get your decal way wetter than,
Mhm.
like it's like 2 submerges and a good bit of weighting, right?
Mhm.
Then I got my wet brush and I wetted the area that I wanted it to go onto. At that point, I wet the brush again and so I'm holding the decal near what is now a puddle on my model, right? And I
Mhm.
start probing around the decal with the wet brush until all of a sudden you'll see it start to move. And then once it starts to move, then you can sort of shove it off the cardboard and into the puddle, and now you've got it floating.
Mhm.
And man, it was touch and go at times getting the orientation right because once it's floating, it's floating. It's floating, man. You know how hard it is to get a 5 point star in the middle of a hood perfectly, lined up while it's floating? Oh, and it's
Mhm.
made out of cheese. It just wants to fall apart if you touch it. Man. So I'm over there and I've got the thing floated. I'm trying to steer it. Then I found the move was to take my brush, which is right now wet as it can be because I just had to shove off the thing, and I'm like wiping it on my sleeve to get it dry so that I can then start uh, strategically wicking water from the edges of the decal so that it would make contact with the surface finally, right?
Mhm.
Man, I got them on though, and I gotta say they go a long way. If you guys want to see the pretty waterside decals on my World War II vehicles, you can check them out over on the Discord. In the Bitsbox channel, they're on where I shared the TikTok after I had got them on all my things. But I tell you what, by the fourth or fifth one, I was starting to get it. I was starting to get it. I even put a very small bit of number text on the vertical piece of the hood of my Jeep, and then centered up a USA above that, just like it was on the old pictures that I found on the internet.
Mhm.
So, water slide decals, if you prefer. I like decals though. It's just more fun to
Got a ring
say.
to it.
It does, doesn't it? Oh, gotta do me decals. Let us know if you do your decals. Do you use the Microsol micro set? I don't really know how much it would help. I mean, especially on flat stuff, I don't think it'd make any difference. But anyway, I did accidentally grab one after it had been set, and it came off on my finger, and so I had to start over on that one. But that's 27 seconds left, and what I did mainly in the hobby this week. I'll reset the timer for when you need 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
bring the
So
video back.
yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Uh, have you ever had them flip on you?
Flip.
Or I don't know about flip, but like fold,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
I've
yeah.
I've done them in the past, and like if you get a big long one, like a name or something, I've had them before where I try to like slide them off, and then suddenly they've flipped over, and I'm dealing with like a taco. I have to try to unwrap it using the brush
Oh.
and get it back around.
Well, so I think if you get the water slide going like I'm talking about, where you actually manage to take like a long strip, right? But then it's going onto
Mhm,
a puddle, you can once it's really just about too wet to even work with, you can touch it with the brush and slide it from even the front. You don't even need to slide from the back. At which point you can just drag it off into the water and then it would stay straight. Because I had a long string that I did that and it
mhm,
worked good. I mean, I say a long string. It is probably 8 times the length of that, than the width. And it was just, some teensy tiny numbers, but we're talking really small stuff. All right, let's talk about these new changes to the fight phase. Um, it's a 2-inch engagement range now, and I love that. We're also not doing base to base contact anymore as a requirement. So, what we're doing is when you charge, you have to get into engagement range. You must get within 1 with every model, and then every model that
mhm,
can't do that has to get within 2, unless you don't have enough movement to make it that far, right? And then you get to where you're stringing out and all that. Um, Here's why I like that. Mainly the base to base thing, getting rid of the base to base, is because base to base made all the sense in the world just to say. You got to get in base to base contact with the units you're going to. And then you get
mhm,
2 ranks, whoever's base to base with somebody base to base, you get to fight, right? The problem is scale creep has happened since somebody thought up that good idea. I mean, it happened way before 10th edition. I can't believe they decided to do it for 10th edition. But our models have gotten way too big to be trying to base them against each other. Like I found over and over and over again is like, well, there's just no way this guy's going to touch bases with him and him. It didn't make any sense. We've got guys on tactical
mhm,
rocks. The rock sticks out, you know, however far, a half inch over the 40 mil base. To say nothing to
mhm.
32s, a Primaris Space Marine on a 32 has got his toes off both edges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was very silly that they even did that. And so now we only have to get within 1. And I think that's much better. It's much cleaner. We're going to have a lot less scratched capes, right?
Mhm.
Not that anybody was actually that worried about the base to base. Like we were all just, as soon as the models were touching, we were all calling it good, weren't we? Because it
Mhm.
was impractical.
Yeah.
Um, the They gave us a little clip of the rules layout in the article of how they are, sort of with a target and an effect and a timing thing, and with internal references to referenced rules, which is straight out of Age of Sigmar. Age of Sigmar, what are we on? 4th edition? Basically, everything looks like a stratagem.
Mhm.
It's like, when does it happen? What's the effect that it uses? Here's the effect defined. Here's, it says like per movement rules. Movement 03. So we've got like a number decimal system sort of rules reference now, which I think is great. Because I always like those systems because they give you an idea of where you would need to go look if there's a reference. You know,
Mhm.
all the movements in section 3. So section 3.7 or whatever is probably toward the end of the movement rules, right? That's probably where the
Mhm.
disembarkations and things will be. So I like that. Um, oh, You know how we were hating on their diagrams last week? We were talking about 40K could do a little better with their diagramming.
Yeah,
In this article, they made a good diagram.
all these are good.
Yeah, they're really
They all
solid.
make sense.
They made
Yeah.
a lot of sense. So I retract my critique of their diagramming. Apparently, they have one that's kind of jank. That OC one, not crazy about it. This one, these much better. So now they're doing more better than they are bad. So I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Da, 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 da. Fight order reverts to 8th edition, where the player whose turn it is goes first instead of the player whose turn it is not. So when we fight normal, when we take turns, now it's
Mm-hmm.
my turn, then it's your turn. Bop, 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 bop. Okay?
That makes sense.
Um, it doesn't actually change anything either because what they've done, and I like this. So first of all, it nerfs fights first, which I think is great. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
fights first was almost entirely a gotcha mechanic, especially in my army with my preferred detachment, where for 2 CP I could make my evil oath a moment. I could give on my evil oath moment I can give my unit fights first, and it's just oops, you ran into my trap. I played the homie
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy last week, and he did it twice. Which I mean, he knew about it. He knew it was a possibility, but the game state was such that he had to try, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and there are some hoops required to that I have to jump through. I gotta have 2 CB handy, and the thing that's charging me has to be my focus of hatred, which means I had to have picked it in my command phase. You know, so and now he's charging me, right? So it's the next turn anyway. But then there's stuff like the lion where he just has that and you can't mess with him no matter what you want to do, so bleep off, right? That's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So now the person whose turn it is gets to pick first. So I charge the lion. He's got fights first, which means I get to take some swings at him before he then has the opportunity to cut me in half. Much more reasonable. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do all my fights first. Now, what's neat is then you go to ongoing combats, and rather than in 8th edition where the ongoing combats kind of felt bad because it's like, well, here's all my charge units, I'm fighting, fights normal, okay, back to me again. What will happen is that it goes to whoever's turn it is next.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I get to pick first. I do my 3 charging units, all fights first. Now it's time to fight normal. We've got ongoing combats. Well, it's your turn to pick right now because you're the next in line. So it doesn't change anything the way that it's been functioning in 8th edition. And I think that's good. Or, I mean, the way it's been functioning in 10th edition. However,
Yeah.
it cleans up that fights first stuff with that makes it less just brutal to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my God, the fights first. By the way we were trying to dodge it by charging a nearby unit to hopefully destroy, with 2 units to destroy it, and then have the unit you meant to go to pile into the fights first unit so that they wouldn't get the opportunity to pick it. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
And who knows? We may have a little. I mean, we'll certainly have a little bit of that in 11th edition, but it won't be. You won't have to be thinking about that for 3 turns. Like, oh, I'm playing Dark Angels. How am I going to set up this ridiculous play against the lion? That became the whole game when you played against a fight first character, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or you just would not engage with it at all with anything, and then it's like, well, the lion shouldn't even be here because
Yeah.
he might as well just be a no go zone. Well, that doesn't feel very heroic either.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so, the 2-inch engagement range I really like because they even mentioned in the article that that, well, I'm standing 1 inch behind this wall, so you can't fight me because you can't get models in between the wall and me to, inside of the 1 inch engagement range to fight, or through the wall or whatever, right? And
Mm.
Tactical Trevi took issue with this because he's like, okay, well, now we're just going to put stuff 2 inches behind the wall and you won't have room and da da da. And I'm like, 32 mil bases fit in a 2 inch hole. And as I'm saying that, he's like, 32s will fit, but everything's moved to a 40. We got so much elite armies with 40s, and I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, you can't
Here's me
fit.
grabbing the goalpost and moving it.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, your Baneblade can't charge into a building. It can't fit.
Darn.
That's so
Darn
messed
it.
up. Like, I can't believe that. No, man, the game has got to work at a Space Marine level, or else it does. Like, I don't even. I feel like it's not even worth talking about if the stuff doesn't make sense for the Space Marines. If the Space Marines can
Mhm.
charge into the building and get at you, that makes sense. What didn't make sense is when you're like, oh, well, I'm .9 behind the wall, so you're out of luck. Get out of here. That was terrible.
It's cheese. Cheese.
It was cheese. Cheese out the
It's
can,
cheese
said
fest.
somebody in our Discord. Cheese in the can. That's what
Hmm.
he said. I said, I'm going to have to steal that, man.
Yeah,
Now,
that was Jason Trump.
there are some interesting knock-on effects on this. So one thing that's interesting, and I like it. I like it. I think it's going to make the game a bit longer, but I like it. So you declare your charge targets after you make a charge roll. So you say, this unit here, if they have anybody within 12, you can make it. You can say, I'm going to make a charge roll. Then you make your roll.
Mm.
That number becomes your maximum distance. Okay, and that's like defined in the stratagem style rules writing. At that point, you can select one or more charge targets that have to be within that number. Okay? You then will move your models within one, and if you can't get within one, within two. Okay? Of one of all of your charge targets. Okay? So, what this means is that if you're now engagement range is 2, you got to stay outside of engagement range at all times, right? Just like normal. If you're 2 inches away from something, then you must be greater than 2 inches away from something. Therefore, if you roll a 2 on your charge roll, your maximum distance is 2. Being that you cannot pick a charge target that's outside of your maximum distance, that means a roll of 2 always fails. Which I think is kind of lame. You got your head wrapped around that one entirely?
Yeah, it is. It is kind of strange.
I know why they did it. Because I mean, it's like this in Age of Sigmar too. A 2 inch charge can't succeed because they got a 3 inch engagement range in that game. Um, and I guess that's fine because if you roll 2, then that's really unfortunate. It's almost like a
Mhm.
foobar table or something, isn't it? Um, but I guess they did it because you need. Why did they do it? Because you can't just say that you can move toward anything within 12. I guess you could. That's how it used to be. Like you you pick your charge target on the front end, you roll a 12, and then if you're 12 and a half from something, then you could have got theoretically a 13-inch charge. You see what I mean? Or a 13-inch threat range.
Mm-hmm.
So it's created a situation where everything's sort of a. But then you're not supposed to be able to choose anything that's outside of 12 anyway. So that becomes kind of a. Let's take 9 for instance. A thing they mentioned in this is that Deep Strike is now going to come in on at 8. But of course, it's like 8.1, which means that the the maximum distance roll needed to charge a deep striking unit is still 9. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and vice versa, I suppose. So this is a change that they're aware of and a knock-on effect they're aware of. Now, what I think is more interesting about it is that the idea with it is it stops those feel bads of, okay, and this unit needs to charge that unit, and I need a 6, and I rolled 3, and I'll command point reroll, and I rolled a 4, and so cool. Now I've wasted even more resources, and that unit's in the wind and is gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, you just say, they're gonna try a charge, and you roll. Ooh, 12. Let's see who's within 12, right? You can change your plan. Or, whoo, 3. Okay. I'm going to essentially heroically intervene into this unit that's right here next to me instead of what I meant to do. Because,
Yeah.
and I think that absolutely makes up for 2's always failing. Because that is huge. How many times have we been like, okay, really? I need to get here. It didn't work. Now my plan's screwed. Now,
Mm-hmm.
now here's the funny thing: is you can also elect to just not move, not charge. So now what's going to happen is everything is going to make the charge roll just to see. So we're going to have all these charge rolls. We're going to need a big handful of dice to roll them and then just put the number next to the unit. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, so you're saying you don't have to charge if you make the charge roll?
No.
That's stupid.
You can decide
I'm
to
getting
stand put,
I'm getting worked
stand
up.
pat.
I'm getting worked up now.
Well, I've got a hard out here in about 5 minutes because we recorded later today. But go ahead and give me your worked up on that. Why does that bother you?
That bothers me mainly because I like the idea of having to stick with your choices even if they end up not being optimal. I like the idea of that in a war game. So not having to make the charge, I feel like sure it adds more player agency. But at the same time, I think there's some cases where we need less player agency. I like the idea that you might say, uh, that's a pretty long shot charge, but I'll just roll it. I don't know if I want to make it, but let's just see if I do. And you happen to roll that 12. You happen to roll that 12 as charge. So now you've kind of overextended yourself when you didn't really know if you wanted to or thought it was possible. It's just kind of like those instances are now no longer a thing if you can just say, never mind, I'm not going to charge. I feel like there's something to uh, the chance of overextending yourself, getting too, I don't know, getting too hyped up over it.
I think
Is
that
the thing. I don't know.
I think it's an intentional I think it's an intentional boon for melee that they've added, per my previous point where the melee is just fundamentally not as good as shooting. And I don't mean like in a damage output kind of way. I mean like in a physical interaction kind of way, like in even in real life, right? It's better to shoot a guy across the room than to let him walk up and you try to stab him or to even shoot him then,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so I think that's what they're doing is they're giving you more gadgets to use in melee. I think so that you don't, because right now we've got a thing in 10th where if you make too big a charge roll on a small charge, because you're required to get every model in base to base contact, right? So let's say you have a 4-inch charge, well you roll a 12. Now you can end up with your unit wildly out of position because it requires you to like walk all the way around these dudes and start stacking guys in base to base. You see? Um,
But I like that. I like that. That's the thing that can happen.
right. Well, but then that leaves you exposed to the shooting, and then the shooting becomes the thing that everybody wants to do, and so leave your guys at home and take the tanks. You see? So I think it'll be fine. I do hear what you're saying though. The idea that you can just be like, never mind.
What it comes down to is wanting a war game where you're having to herd the army like cats versus a war game where you want everyone to be an absolute like token and like thrall to your ambition.
Yeah, and I would say that the meta people that we were talking about earlier want it even more that way. They want everybody to just be a little number on a spreadsheet that gives X amount of damage / points per point, right? Like
And that's what I feel like.
they want every model to represent not its points cost, but like its point cost per game point scored. That's what they want, right?
Mhm.
They want
Yeah.
like the NBA plus minus, points plus minus 100 possessions, so that they could build their armies that way. And I hate
Mhm.
them. It looks like you're not going to get your 5, sir.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not.
Well, dims be the breaks. Do you have any other quick takes on 11th edition 5-phase rules? I think they're great. One, I think they're different, and I like different.
I think the overrun rule is a nice change. Being able to still get a little bit of combat if you wipe out the big thing you were in combat with. I like that. Also, kind of makes sense that they would still kind of have a bit of momentum to them in the combat phase to kind of push through into something else. I think that's cool.
Yeah, piling in, we did not get a whole lot of stuff on, but it says that you pile in like as part of the charge. That I believe it said we take turns piling in. Now, does that mean that I pile in all my charge things, and then you pile in all your things that have been charged, right? Or does that mean I pile in a unit and then you pile in a unit? Because that would make a difference. That'd be a back and forth, right? Because
Hmm.
a lot of your more competitive players, they see that pile in as an opportunity to gain ground, and it is unless it's not, right? If you got some units that charge to the very limit of their maximum distance charge roll, then they may only have one or two guys actually in engagement range, and then it's your turn to pile in, so you're going to crowd into my guys, therefore decreasing my relative threat range, you see. But then I do like it too. The diagram they gave was the example of a transport. We've all seen this. Such and such shards of transport. Bang, cracks the egg. The dudes jump out the back, and so the other unit that charges transport is in the wind. They don't get to do anything. Stand there, look pretty. Now they get to make a second pile in. Now, whether that is forward, backward, it depends on if you even want to do it, right? So the idea that this is always just stomp, 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 stomp into your opponent's deployment zone, I think, is a bit of a knee jerk from the competitive scene. I think it's going to be fine because, again, we both get to do it the whole time. You see what I mean? Ooh, look,
Hmm.
I piled in twice and got real close to you. Oh man, it's your turn now. Look, you just piled in twice and got real close to me. We're both on the same playing field, people.
Yeah.
And if you're worried about what's happening on table 12 and you're on table 1, then I don't know how to help you. I also, maybe we'll talk about this next. We won't talk about this next week. We'll put it in the notes because we'll probably have new 40k rules to talk about. 11th edition coming out. In mini takes, we are going to talk about other games, but right now, it's hot time in 40k. But um, the whole like competitive people, how many of them are there really? How many people are just going to RTTs because they want to get 3 games in a day? Because I think that kind of thing ends up mattering the way that GW adjusts points and stuff based on tournament results.
Hmm.
Leave your takes below. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next week.